Welcome back to another episode of the Girlfriends Without Benefits podcast. If you have
Welcome.
not listened to the previous episode, we're going to suggest you go back and do that. Otherwise, some of our analogies and conversations probably won't make sense. Also, the title of this might not even make sense either.
It's all good. This is the part two to what happens after your mental health spiral, or you are in your
And
spiral,
yeah,
or
you've
you are
recognized,
spiraled.
yep, spiraled, been told you're spiraling if you're pretending like you're not spiraling, all of that,
All the things.
all the things.
Or as if you listen to the last episode, you've dropped all your grapes and now it's time to pick up your grapes.
I love that. That's such a great analogy. Okay, we're not going to get grapey with it this episode, though.
We're not. We're leaving them behind.
To this episode, kiwis. I'm just kidding.
Are you trying to what are you trying to do?
I'm here for insights from the universe and comic relief. It's equal parts both. You can't have one without the other.
Because my brain immediately goes to kiwis and like it's just like, no, I did not need that. Okay.
All right.
Anyway,
Bringing us back.
Actually, no, this is there though. Like, so to be fair, and I promise I'm not going down the kiwis, but like honestly,
fruit salad over here. Jesus.
I use comedy when I'm amidst my spiral. And that is a big piece of like how once I recognize it, I will start to kind of play with it and make light of it and make jokes of it and like kind of have fun with it. Because like okay, anyone listening to this spiral or this podcast ever have a spiral that lasts forever? No, you're still here.
I had one that lasted a long time, but
yes, a long time, but not forever. Obviously,
correct.
unless you're like, well, I'm still here. It's been 30 years.
I'm still in my spiral. What do you mean?
Like, I'm still in my spiral from post-conception. Like, no. So like I have to bring humor to it, knowing that it's temporary, knowing that I'm going through it. And then also, like for me, looking kind of ahead, I see what comes out of it after I'm done with it. So like I look forward and have the anticipation around that because it's personal development, it's growth. You have to go through the hard to get to the good stuff. So like the longer the spiral, the meatier the spiral, the uglier the spiral, the more like I'm questioning why my existence is even on the planet during the spiral, the better stuff that's going to come out of it.
Yeah, absolutely. And a lot of that has to do with your chart. So got to bring that into it. Like your little moon in Sagittarius. So when your back's against the wall, when the mask's off, it's like, where do I bring truth? Where do I bring optimism? Where do I bring, just get it done energy? Where do I put my fire? Like that's your moon, right? Mm-hmm. Answering that spiral. So and my moon is in Capricorn. So I just want to boss everyone around and organize and get bitchy. It's just like what I do.
When you're in your spiral?
Yeah. I mean, that's how I think there's a difference between a spiral and an emotional reaction, right? And correct. So we're kind of talking about something way bigger than just your moon sign in astrology. But I think that you can recognize when you're starting to get in your feels when your moon kind of reacts. And mine is like, what do I need to organize? What do I need to contain? What do I need to compartmentalize? What do I need to boss around? Like, that's what I do.
That makes sense. What is Kaylin's moon? Where's Kaylin's moon and how does that relate?
Your moon is in Sagittarius too, isn't it, Kaylin?
I'm pretty sure. No.
My
moon is a cusper between Leo and I think, is it Leo Virgo or something like that? Why am I?
Well, moons can't really be cusps, but they can be at 0 degrees.
I'm 1 degree Leo.
You're 1 degree.
Oh, and if you guys are on our YouTube channel, you guys get to see Kaylin's chart right now. How fucking exciting is that? So that's just another little plug.
Run to YouTube right now.
Exactly.
Oh, yes, of course. Yes, your moon is at 1 degree Leo. And so it depends on how you're reading the chart. Some astrologers would say that you get to dip your toe both in Cancer and Leo energy.
Cancer.
And some astrologers would say that you have the kind of the more immature, like childlike version of that Leo energy. So, and we've talked about this before, Kaylin, and you're definitely a dip your toe. You definitely pull from both sides. So when you're in your emotional state, there's some nesting, there's some like, I need emotional nourishment and I need to feel emotionally supported right now. And also like, you need attention, but it can be hard for you to ask for attention and say, no, it's my turn to have some of that spotlight on me. So it can be
I'm
hard.
going to give Kaylin, I'm going to do a little Kaylin story here.
Oh,
because I feel like I can. When Kaylin was amidst one of her cycles, Kaylin went and cleaned out her entire fridge, and now everything is in bins. Everything is in clear bins. Her like laundry room, everything's in a bin. Everything is labeled. Everything, the medicine cabinet, it's all binned. Like it is the most beautiful case of organization known to man. And I feel like that was a big piece that was tied to some of the stuff that you were going through.
Oh yeah, that is huge. But Jade knows this about me too because of my chart and also my human design too. Like my home space is so important to me and I must have organization. Like if I don't, I just
can't
function. Yeah, it is extremely hard for me to function without it. So
it is great to have her as a friend because that rubs off on you too. And then she comes to your house and puts everything in little baggies.
Let me tell you, I had to fight all of the urges inside of me to not help my friend organize and prepare for her baby this past weekend because I mean she's very organized in and of herself and like has her own stuff. We're similar in that way, but like has, you know, that she just moved, has stuff that needs to be put away in the nursery, and that is my love language. And so but I also am in my third trimester and probably like I barely put together a closet system 2 weeks ago. So like that is probably the last thing that I should be doing in somebody else's home. But I really like it there. I had a lot of feelings of like, I could probably do this in the next 2 hours. Like I could probably go through all this and just do this for her. But I was like, Kaylin, don't do it. Don't do it. Don't. We had this conversation this morning. My mind and my body, they're telling me two different things right now. And I have to choose to listen to my body, even though I'd rather just go with my mind.
Yeah.
When you guys are in your spirals, do you feel like you often have like this mind body disconnection?
Yes, I do.
I completely disassociate from my body. Like, what the hell is a body?
I'm a disassociator.
I don't
too.
have that.
Yeah, let's kind of like categorize the things that we believe are going to be across the board for all of our listeners, because we're talking about we're in this spiral, what do you do? So I think disassociation is a huge piece, isn't it? Like disconnecting mind body. So finding what works for you to get back into your body. It can be, as Kaylin mentioned in the last episode, something as simple as a walk. For me, you know, jumping into water, be it a shower or a lake or a pool, is huge. What are some of the ways that you guys get back into your bodies?
I have to ground. Like, so like coming back to my breath is huge because I lose my breath when I'm like starting to spiral.
I can relate to that.
Yeah. So I have to ground and I have to find my breath and just like focus on the smallest thing. But that is true for me. Like even when I find like an anxiety attack coming on, and like I mean, I haven't had this. It's probably been, I guess, a year since like the really bad one. But I would have, like arthritis symptoms, like rheumatoid arthritis, like in my joints. In my kneecaps, in my wrists, like and it was almost like my body was yelling at me to get back into it. Like you are not here right now. And it was like doing all that it could to like bring awareness back to like the fact that it exists, because I was just completely outside. So like breath is huge, especially like if I feel those symptoms, breathing in to wherever it is that like I'm having that pain, right? It's like breathing into my kneecaps, breathing into my wrists, like, and focusing on that can bring me back into my body.
Love that.
Cass, I see you.
Yeah, well, mine is when I'm out, I'm really, really far out. So
You're
like
astro.
I almost, yeah, I'm astro on a whole nother world plane piece. So I actually almost have to do what I do from like a journeying perspective to get back in, to come back home and to kind of land. So like for me, that does involve breath work, that does involve kind of intentionality with like, I'll do like a 61 point body scan as to like bring your awareness to the crown of your head, to your third eye, to your ears, to your cheeks, to your like, and it goes through. I actually have a recording that I go through that kind of like forces me. It's funny because like as I was thinking about it, I'm like, if I do like a 9 point body scan or like a traditional small body scan, I'm like, I'm still gone. I need like the super kind of fine tooth combed intentionality through like I jokingly say like I need like a lever version, like the lever 2000 soap where it's like we have 2000 body parts. I need that version to bring me back in. So like I'll use that, which is super, super helpful for me. But for me, it's actually realizing the fact that I'm out, because it's very comfortable for me to be out there. And I lived a large part of my childhood out there. So like I feel like a lot of times more comfortable out than I am in. So like once I realize that, it's like, oh, now I have to go back. And like part of me, probably the inner child part, is like, I don't want to come back. Like I want to play out here. It's better out here. So but like the
being in my body sucks.
Correct. Also water for me too. I go swimming. And like a pool, like deep submerged, things of that nature. Anything that's like temperature oriented. So like a super, like the pool that we go to is super cold, or like even the sauna internally, like the warmth actually helps me. So anything that's like almost a polarity brings me back to center based upon where I am.
Same. So disassociation is definitely, I think, something everyone would relate to with the mental spiral. What's another piece that everyone's going to relate to?
Anger.
Or lack thereof.
I feel like there's a spectrum, right? Because I think we,
like everything else on this podcast, a spectrum.
I know, another fucking spectrum. Mental health is a spectrum though. So that makes sense. I think, no, anger is a good one, right? Because what does anger look like on me? What does anger look like on Jade? And what does anger look like on Cass? Well, they probably look different on all of us. And we might be feeling what anger is to us, but what it looks like is different.
For me, it's pretending like it's not there.
So then it's funny because like going to human design, which we often go to on this podcast, like my not self theme when I am out of body, when I am in my spiral, is anger. It's rage. It's not anything like frustration. I'm like, what's that? Like, you just go from 0 to angry. Like there's no in the middle. And I think Kaylin, yours is frustration, right?
Mine's frustration.
Jade, what is yours?
It's not. Wait, maybe it is. I can't remember. I can't believe I can't remember. But it doesn't. I mean, I don't feel angry.
Yeah,
that's a trauma thing. I've been having to actually teach myself how to feel my anger, and that's only been within the last couple of years. It feels very, very uncomfortable to me to be angry. Very uncomfortable.
If you need a lesson, I can help you.
It's funny because I like part of, going through the therapy that I've been through is like identifying what my emotion is that was tied to certain situations, right? And I never said anger. Never one that I would say was an emotion that was tied to it before. Now, post, I feel like I can recognize, I think I was angry. Yeah. I think that's why I was acting the way I was acting, and I was feeling the way I was acting, even though what anger looks like on someone You know, it was angry because I felt let down, or I was angry because of this, but I couldn't identify it as that because I didn't know, I couldn't put a name to it, if that makes sense.
Yeah, that makes all the sense to me. That's like literally me too. Yeah.
And we all experience anger, but when you go through times, depending on what it is, what your mental health spiral is, right, or what your triggers are, you might say like, no, I'm not angry. It's like, yes, you are.
One of the things that I found out from working with my clients is that anger is never the primary emotion.
Secondary.
It's always secondary. So like it's always like sadness and then anger, fear and then anger, surprise and then anger, like disgust, and then there's always something first. But like
triggered by something.
But also there's this negative emotion around anger that we don't feel like we're supposed to be able to feel it.
Yes, exactly. Yeah.
Rage and then anger.
Very much.
Probably the opposite.
Yeah.
And I've had, you know, I remember the first time, you know, somebody asked me the question, why aren't you angry? Like, why?
I remember that one.
Why wouldn't you? Like, you should be. And I was like,
be angry. Yeah.
Yeah. I'm like, damn, that's, you know, that's intense. So
it's almost like you need to feel safe in order to be able to say that I feel angry.
Oh my, yeah. Deep, Kaylin. It's real deep.
Let's do it.
It'll go on our bugs.
Yeah.
Start producing bugs of our quotes.
Yeah.
You have to feel safe to feel angry.
So I want to know something. Since we've all been in a mental health spiral, what is your longest one? And B, how did you get out of it?
Oh, goodness.
Where all our brains are like, oh God, we don't have enough time to tell that story.
What I love is when people ask us questions, having them answer first. So Kaylin, take it away.
I knew that you were going to say that. And so I was trying to like think as fast as I could, like, wait, how long was my longest spiral? So I want to say, so it was, mine in particular was gradual. And so it was probably the onset of it, like the beginning parts were probably to like the final, like when I finally was like, okay, like I can't do this anymore. Like I need to go through, I need help. Like we're dark, like things are getting bad. It was probably start to finish, like maybe like 9-ish years of just like gradual, like no one, and I don't know that anyone would really know unless there's one person in particular that definitely knew. And at the end, I like finally told everything after I had like started like coming out of my spiral. And they were like, I knew it. I knew something was off. I knew something wasn't right with you. But I would say that most people, kind of like you, Jade, right, wouldn't necessarily know.
Nope.
And I think for me, I didn't even know until the very, very end.
Yeah.
Because it was just so gradual.
Yes.
And my question. 100%.
And I think we can talk ourselves out of it too. Like, I'm not in the spiral, right? Like, everything's fine. Yep. Like, this is just an isolated event, because I think what's interesting about some mental health spirals is they can be really quick, right? And it's almost like when you've had one and you've gone through it and then you've come out of it, they go faster a little bit. But I feel like that first one, it's easy to say like, oh, I'm not in one, and to play that like denial game, or like everything's okay. And then you can't really deny when it gets to the point of like, you know, natural disaster.
Correct.
Yes. And so, I think that if you don't acknowledge it like you did, then you met people, and I know people who've never come out of the spiral. They just
who would say that they've never had one. Even.
Yeah, they live in that space. They literally live there. They live there.
Yeah. I feel for anyone and everyone because like for me, 9 years was a really long time to be in that place and to be on that roller coaster, right? Of like, da, 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 da. And each time, right, I get a little bit higher and a little bit lower, and then a little bit higher and a little bit lower. But I'm still on the fucking roller coaster ride of the mental health spiral. Yep. And it is, yeah, it's tough. So it came to a point where I was like, I can't live like this anymore. Like I'm like, there is something wrong with me. This can't be normal. Like this, like, cause I think because I have empathy, I'm like, other people have it way worse. And that was something that I would talk myself through, right? Like, this isn't that bad. Like other people have it way worse. And I think for me, that like line in the sand of like, okay, like something is not right is like, I'm just like, everything in general, if you look at my life, is fine, but I don't feel fine.
Yes.
So what, like, there's got to be something going on here.
So what are the things, like really concrete, like things that you did to start to pull yourself out? I know therapy was one of them. I know that.
I sought help. Yeah. I sought help was like first and foremost. It was like, I need something more, because I've read all the books, right? I studied it, and I went to school for this kind of stuff. Like, I have a degree in psychology. You know, I'm very informed. And what's funny is when you're looking at other people, it's completely different than when you're looking at yourself.
Yes.
And I almost think too, when you know it could be worse, as like fucked up as that is, it almost like you kind of like tell yourself like it's not that bad for you, because it could be worse. And it's true. I probably could have gotten worse. I could have continued to go down the spiral and gotten into a much worse spot. I didn't, but it could have. And so I think for me, it was like getting to that point where I'm like, I know on my own, I can't cope with this anymore. Like, I don't have the tools in my toolbox. Like, I don't like me. I don't like who I am right now. I don't like the way that I feel right now mentally. And so like, I need help. I need more tools.
And you found a therapist that you really, really liked. Like we're the first ones to say you're not supposed to go to a therapist, not really be getting anything from it, and then be like, oh, they're the professional, so I should just stay and keep trying. Like,
not my first therapist either.
Okay.
I saw a therapist probably like 3 years prior. Didn't like them and stopped going.
Right. So you have to find someone
and continued on the fucking spiral.
Yes. So. Yes. It has to be someone that you can relate to.
No, Kaylin, I'm curious. Was that your first recognized spiral?
My first recognized spiral. That's a tough one, because you know, it's like when you're in school and learning about these things, right, and studying these things forces you to look at your life, right? And so I had looked at things in the past, but again, that like side of me that's like mothering and nurturing it was like, how can I help others in my life?
Yeah. Interesting.
No. Yeah.
I was asking because when I think of mine was like my first recognized. Obviously, there was the dissection of my whole childhood and those pieces. But then like when I was on my own, so to speak, I called it like a series of unfortunate events, which like if I look at it now, I'm like, oh, it was totally like a spiral swirl. Yeah. But it was from that like age 16-ish to 24-ish. So kind of those 8-year range. And it was like my first recognized swirl spiral. So I was just curious if there was any parallels in there.
Yeah, I mean, I'm sure I had other ones prior, but not acknowledged them. Not even I'm sure. I know, because that's how you build your coping mechanisms, right? Is once you go through something and you're like, okay, something's not right now, and then you find a coping mechanism, like, oh, this works. Yep. Not always healthy. That's some people, you know, get into drugs, unfortunately, as a coping mechanism. That's a podcast for a different day. But I think we find those. And I think that's how you discover them, is you discover them while you're not feeling good and you're in one of those spirals, or you're becoming one, and then you find something that copes and works. And so of course I had coping mechanisms that I had developed over time. But I didn't actually like address and stop the spiral until like 9 years.
Yeah. I think that my answer has to be a different podcast, because I think the words "girl interrupted" keep coming into my head. Like I wasn't even, the way that my brain was trained to think about mental health was so off, right? That's not how I considered myself as a mind, body, soul. I considered myself as just a Christian, and if I had any concerns, I needed to confess them as sin or look to a very specific methodology and process and system to get out of, so you're just throwing band-aids, like slapping a whole bunch of band-aids all over, and it's not even like it's just a completely different conversation.
Yeah. No, that makes sense.
Yeah.
So if you had to put a year to it, how many years would you put?
Well, I was like, I don't know. I don't even know how to answer that. Like,
so my question for you, Jade, and a little insight to the listeners, is we have a list of backlogged podcasts that we need to record. And one of them, which you've asked and we've wanted to know the story, or you've wanted to know the story of, is how Jade escaped her cult. Is that tied to your Girl Interrupted piece?
Yes, exactly. That's what went into my head. Like I had to get out of that in order to even know what mental health, like even like say those words.
Yeah.
So high five, spiritual team on the job. Did a great job queuing that up. So
yeah.
Well, I can't wait for the next episode where you spill the tea on your escape.
I don't know if it'll be the next episode that they listen to, but it'll be coming up. So you guys just have to keep listening to it until you hear it.
Yeah, it needs to be a podcast said at a very specific time. We'll know when it is, but yeah. I think that there has to be a lot of people listening that have suffered spiritual abuse, and spiritual abuse is just, when it's so pervasive for so many years, it can just really be a different beast. And having worked with a lot of people, a lot of clients who've also been in it, it truly is a different beast. So there's more words to be said about that. Everyone who's listening in can relate to that. So yeah.
Wow. That was thrilling. And I want to end with one question for you, Jade. And that is, what was it for you that got you out of the spiral?
Which the spiral of like leaving?
Your longest spiral. Yeah.
I mean, it's I wrote about it, right? It's astrology. It's like finding myself. That's what got me out. Finding myself. I think that's what I preach over and over again. If that's my soapbox, is go find yourself, go know yourself, figure yourself out, use human design, use astrology, use whatever methodology works for you and resonates with you, so that you can start figuring out who you are, so you can start loving who you are, period. That's it. End of sentence.
I love that.
Yeah.
Cool.
Well, thank you.
Thank you. We've had a lot of valuable words on here. I think that appreciate it.